The Sumerians were not just a civilization. They were a beacon of progress that shone brightly against the backdrop of history. They were pioneers who dared to dream, to question, and to explore. They looked at the world around them and saw not just what was, but what could be. They were the first to ask the questions that would define humanity. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose? The Sumerians were the first to develop a system of writing, the cuneiform, etching their stories, laws, and knowledge into clay tablets that have survived through millennia. They were the first to establish schools, passing on their knowledge from generation to generation, ensuring that their wisdom would not be lost to the sands of time. They were the first to codify laws, to map the stars, to invent the wheel. In every aspect of life, the Sumerians were true innovators. But the Sumerians were not just about innovation. They were a people of deep spirituality and profound wisdom. Their pantheon of gods and goddesses, their myths and legends, their rituals and ceremonies were all reflections of their understanding of the world and their place in it. They saw the divine in everything, from the rising of the sun to the changing of the seasons, and their religion was a testament to their awe and reverence for the world around them. The Sumerians were also a people of great cultural richness. Their art, music, literature, and architecture were all expressions of their creativity and their passion for beauty. From the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known works of literature, to the ziggurats, towering structures that reached for the heavens, the Sumerians left a cultural legacy that continues to inspire and captivate to this day. But who were the Sumerians? It is said that the Sumerians were the first civilization in human history, and it is said that the Sumerian civilization had been created by the Anunnaki, a group of deities who came from the heavens and taught them everything to build an entire civilization that still resonates in our modern societies. To understand who the Anunnaki are, we must delve deep into who the Sumerians were. This video contains valuable information from historical sources, and its purpose is to provide you with a fundamental basis to understand the pillars upon which our society has developed. This is a story of innovation, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. This is the story of Sumeria, the cradle of civilization. The origins of the Sumerians are shrouded in mystery, their history etched in the sands of time. Who were these people, these pioneers of civilization? Where did they come from? How did they build such a complex and advanced society in a time when most of the world was still in the Stone Age? These are the questions that have intrigued historians and archaeologists for centuries, and these questions will be answered throughout this documentary. The Sumerians were a non-Semitic people who spoke a language isolate, a language unrelated to any other known language. This has made it difficult for historians to trace their origins. Some theories suggest that they migrated from the east, possibly from the region of modern-day Iran. Others propose that they were indigenous to the region, evolving from the local Ubaid culture. The Ubaid period, which predates the Sumerians, was characterized by large village settlements, the development of pottery, and advancements in farming. It was a time of significant social and economic change, setting the stage for the rise of the Sumerians. The Ubaid period, which lasted from about 6,500 to 3,800 BCE, was characterized by significant advancements in various aspects of society. The people of this time were primarily farmers, taking advantage of the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They cultivated wheat and barley, raised livestock, and developed irrigation systems, demonstrating an understanding of agriculture that was advanced for its time. But the Ubaid people were not just farmers. They were also skilled craftsmen, creating pottery that was distinct in its design and craftsmanship. The pottery of this period was characterized by its fine quality and intricate designs, often depicting scenes from daily life. This pottery provides us with a glimpse into the lives of the Ubaid people, their beliefs, and their culture. The Ubaid period also saw the development of large village settlements. These settlements were characterized by their unique architecture, including large, multi-roomed houses made of mud brick. The largest of these settlements was Eridu, which is considered by many to be the first city in the world. Eridu was a major center of the Ubaid culture, and it was here that we see the first signs of urbanization. The social structure of the Ubaid culture was complex, with clear indications of social stratification. The society was divided into various classes, including priests, officials, craftsmen, farmers, and slaves. This social structure is indicative of a society that was organized and hierarchical, a society that was on the cusp of civilization. After the Ubaid period, we arrive at a pivotal moment in the story of Sumer, the Uruk period. Named after the ancient city of Uruk, this period, which lasted from around 4000 to 3100 BCE, was a time of profound transformation and growth. It was during this time that the Sumerian civilization truly began to take shape, laying the groundwork for the world's first known civilization. The Uruk period was characterized by significant advancements in technology, the development of writing, and the establishment of political structures. These advancements were driven by a rapidly growing population, which led to increased social complexity and the need for more efficient methods of communication and governance. One of the most significant advancements of the Uruk period was the development of writing. The Sumerians were the first to develop a system of writing, known as cuneiform. This system, which began as a series of pictographs, evolved over time into a complex system of wedge-shaped marks made on clay tablets. This development marked a major milestone in human history, as it allowed for the recording of history, laws, and administrative records, paving the way for the complex societies of later civilizations. The Uruk period also saw the establishment of political structures. The growing complexity of Sumerian society necessitated the development of a system of governance. The Sumerians established city-states, each governed by a lugal or king. These city-states were independent political entities, each with its own government and ruler. This political structure provided a framework for the organization of society and the administration of public affairs. The city of Uruk, from which this period takes its name, was a major center of the Sumerian civilization. It was one of the largest cities in the world at the time, with a population of up to 80,000 people. The city was a hub of trade, religion, and politics, and its influence extended far beyond its own borders. After the period of Uruk, the Sumerian civilization reached the early dynastic period, a time when the Sumerian civilization reached its zenith. Lasting from around 2900 to 2350 BCE, this period was characterized by the rise of city-states, the development of art and literature, and the establishment of the first known empire. The early dynastic period saw the emergence of powerful city-states, each governed by a lugal or king. These city-states, including Eridu, Uruk, Ur, and Lagash, were independent political entities, each with its own government and ruler. They were centers of trade, religion, and politics, their influence extending far beyond their own borders. The city-states were often at war with each other, vying for control of resources and territory. These conflicts led to the rise of powerful kings who established the first known empires. The most famous of these was the Akkadian Empire, established by Sargon of Akkad, who is considered one of the world's first great military leaders. The early dynastic period was also a time of cultural flourishing. The Sumerians developed a rich body of literature, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known works of literature. This epic poem, which tells the story of the hero Gilgamesh and his quest for immortality, provides a glimpse into the beliefs, values, and struggles of the Sumerian people. Art also flourished during this period with the creation of intricate sculptures, reliefs, and pottery. The Sumerians were skilled craftsmen, and their art was characterized by its attention to detail, its realism, and its symbolic imagery. These works of art provide a window into the world of the Sumerians, revealing their beliefs, their values, and their way of life. The Sumerians were not just pioneers of civilization. They were visionaries, their minds teeming with ideas that were far ahead of their time. From their understanding of time to their establishment of the first schools, the Sumerians were true innovators, their legacy echoing through the ages. One of the most significant Sumerian innovations was their development of the concept of time. While most ancient civilizations based their concept of time on the movements of the sun and moon, the Sumerians took a different approach. They divided the day into 24 hours, the hour into 60 minutes, and the minute into 60 seconds. This sexagesimal system, based on the number 60, is still in use today, a testament to the enduring legacy of the Sumerians. The Sumerians were also the first to establish schools, known as eduba, or tablet houses. These schools were primarily for boys from wealthy families, who were taught to read and write cuneiform, as well as mathematics, history, and law. The eduba were more than just places of learning. They were the breeding ground for the scribes, officials, and priests who would go on to play a crucial role in Sumerian society. Another significant Sumerian innovation was the development of the wheel. While the exact origin of the wheel is unknown, the oldest known wheel was found in Mesopotamia and dates back to around 3,500 BCE. The Sumerians used the wheel for transportation, pottery making, and even for irrigation, demonstrating their ability to adapt and innovate. This not only revolutionized transport, but also led to the creation of one of the most powerful weapons of ancient times, the chariot. The wheel set the stage for the creation of chariots, which would later become a symbol of power and status in many ancient civilizations. The Sumerians were also skilled engineers, developing complex irrigation systems to water their crops. These systems, which included canals, dikes, and reservoirs, allowed the Sumerians to transform the arid landscape of Mesopotamia into a fertile agricultural hub. This ability to manipulate their environment was a key factor in the success of the Sumerian civilization. As we explore the many innovations of the Sumerians, we see a civilization that was not just advanced for its time, but one that continues to influence our world today. The Sumerians were visionaries, their ideas and inventions shaping the course of human history. Now let's turn our attention to analyze one specific development that we already cite earlier, the Sumerian system of writing, the cuneiform. We will explore its origins, its development, and its significance, revealing how this ancient system of writing has shaped our understanding of the Sumerian civilization and the world of the ancient Near East. This ancient script, etched into clay tablets, has provided us with a window into the world of the Sumerians, revealing their beliefs, their values, and their way of life. Cuneiform, which means wedge-shaped in Latin, began as a series of pictographs or picture symbols around 3,200 BCE. These early pictographs were simple and direct, representing objects or concepts. However, as the Sumerian society grew more complex, so did their system of writing. The pictographs evolved into a series of wedge-shaped marks, which could represent not just objects, but also abstract ideas, sounds, and grammatical elements. The development of cuneiform was a revolutionary moment in human history. For the first time, humans could record their thoughts, their laws, their transactions, and their history. They could communicate across time and space, preserving their knowledge for future generations. This was a major step towards the complex societies of later civilizations. Learning to read and write cuneiform was a difficult task, requiring years of study. This task was undertaken by a special class of scribes who were highly respected in Sumerian society. These scribes were not just writers. They were also teachers, judges, and officials, playing a crucial role in the administration of the city-states. The cuneiform tablets that have survived to this day provide us with a wealth of information about the Sumerians. They contain economic records, laws, hymns, prayers, magic spells, and even works of literature. These tablets are a testament to the richness and complexity of Sumerian society, revealing a civilization that was remarkably advanced for its time. As we can observe, the Sumerian civilization was not just innovative but also deeply thoughtful. The Sumerians were not just inventors, they were also philosophers, poets, and scholars. Their ideas and beliefs etched into the clay tablets that have survived the ravages of time. The Sumerians were deeply religious, their lives intertwined with their devotion to a pantheon of gods and goddesses. These deities were called Anunnaki. Each Anunnaki had their own personalities, domains, and stories, were the heart of Sumerian religion, influencing every aspect of their society. At the apex of the Sumerian pantheon was An, the sky god, and Enlil, the god of wind and storms. These deities were seen as the supreme rulers of the gods, their will shaping the destiny of both gods and mortals. Beneath them were a host of other gods and goddesses, each responsible for different aspects of the natural world and human life. Among these deities were Enki, the god of water and wisdom, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, Utu, the sun god, and Nanna, the moon god. Each of these deities had their own temples and priesthoods, their worship forming a central part of Sumerian life. The Sumerians believed that their gods were intimately involved in their lives. They saw the hand of the gods in the changing of the seasons, the success of their crops, and the outcomes of their wars. They believed that by honoring the gods through rituals, sacrifices, and hymns, they could gain their favor and ensure the prosperity of their city-states. The myths and legends of the Sumerians reveal a rich and complex cosmology. From the creation of the world to the epic adventures of their gods, these stories were more than just entertainment. They were a way for the Sumerians to make sense of the world around them, to explain the mysteries of nature, and to explore the human condition, taking into consideration that the deities revered by the Sumerians and later by the Akkadians and Assyrians are the main subject of study on this channel. We will delve deeper into their examination once we have sufficiently studied the entire history and development of the Sumerian civilization. For now, let us closely observe the art and architecture that emerged within the Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians were skilled craftsmen and innovative architects, their creative endeavors providing us with a glimpse into their beliefs, their values, and their understanding of the world. Sumerian art was characterized by its attention to detail, its realism, and its symbolic imagery. The Sumerians created intricate sculptures, reliefs, and pottery, their works often depicting scenes from daily life, religious rituals, and mythological tales. These works of art were not just decorative. They were a means of expressing the Sumerians' beliefs and values, their hopes and fears. One of the most famous examples of Sumerian art is the Standard of Ur, a wooden box inlaid with shells and lapis lazuli. This artifact, which dates back to around 2600 BCE, depicts scenes of war and peace, revealing the Sumerians' understanding of the dual nature of human existence. Sumerian architecture was equally impressive, characterized by its grand scale and its functional design. The Sumerians were the first to build ziggurats, stepped pyramids that served as temples to the gods. These structures, which were often the tallest buildings in the city, were a testament to the Sumerians' architectural prowess and their deep reverence for the divine. The city of Uruk, in particular, was known for its architectural marvels. The city was home to the Eanna district, a complex of temples and ziggurats dedicated to the goddess Inanna. The largest of these structures, the White Temple, was a marvel of ancient architecture, its whitewashed walls gleaming in the sun. Now we turn our gaze to the Sumerian legal system, a cornerstone of their society. The Sumerians were one of the first civilizations to develop a comprehensive legal system, and their laws provided the framework for social order and justice. The Sumerian legal system was based on the principle of an eye for an eye. Does it sound familiar? This principle, known as lex talionis, stipulated that the punishment for a crime should be equal to the harm caused by the crime. While this may seem harsh by modern standards, it was a significant step towards the concept of proportional justice, the idea that the punishment should fit the crime. The Sumerian laws covered a wide range of issues, from property rights and trade regulations to marriage and divorce. These laws were not just rules, they were a reflection of the Sumerians' values and beliefs, their understanding of justice and fairness. One of the most famous examples of Sumerian law is the Code of Ur-Nammu, the oldest known law code. This code, which dates back to around 2100 BCE, contains laws on a variety of issues, including theft, murder, and adultery. The code is notable for its emphasis on justice and the rights of the individual, principles that are still central to our legal systems today. The enforcement of these laws was the responsibility of the Lugal, or king, and the Ensi, or city ruler. These rulers were seen as the representatives of the gods, their authority derived from their divine mandate. They were responsible for maintaining order, resolving disputes, and ensuring the welfare of their people. As we delve into the world of Sumerian law, we see a civilization that was not just advanced, but also deeply thoughtful. The Sumerians were not just rulers and lawmakers, they were also philosophers and moralists, their laws reflecting their understanding of justice and the human condition. Now let's take a look on Sumerian economy. As you can imagine, the Sumerians was also the first economy of the world. It was a complex system of resource management, trade, and labor that sustained their society and fueled their prosperity. The Sumerian economy was primarily agrarian, based on the cultivation of crops such as barley, wheat, and flax, and the rearing of livestock. The fertile plains of Mesopotamia, irrigated by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, provided the Sumerians with abundant resources, enabling them to support a large population and build prosperous city-states. The Sumerians, however, were not only farmers, but also skilled craftsmen, as we have already noted, who produced a wide range of goods, including pottery, textiles, and metalwork. These goods were not only for local consumption, but were also traded with neighboring regions, making the Sumerians one of the first civilizations to engage in long-distance trade. Trade was a vital part of the Sumerian economy, providing them with goods and resources that were not available locally. The Sumerians traded with regions as far away as the Indus Valley and Egypt, exchanging their surplus goods for precious materials such as lapis lazuli, gold, and cedar wood. The Sumerians were also pioneers in the development of economic institutions. They established complex systems of credit and debt, with loans being recorded on clay tablets. They also developed a system of weights and measures, which facilitated trade and commerce. In this regard, temples played a crucial role in the Sumerian economy. They were not just places of worship. They were also economic hubs, owning vast tracts of land and employing a large workforce. The temples acted as banks, lending grain to farmers and collecting interest on loans. They also acted as warehouses, storing surplus goods and redistributing them to the populace. The economic role of the temple in Sumerian society cannot be overstated. The temples owned vast tracts of land, which were worked by temple dependents and slaves. The produce from these lands, as well as the offerings made by the people, were stored in the temple's granaries and warehouses. These goods were then redistributed to the populace, particularly to those in need. In this way, the temple served as a kind of welfare state, ensuring that no one went hungry. These grand structures, dedicated to the various gods and goddesses of the Sumerian pantheon, were more than just places of worship. They were the beating heart of the city-states, serving as centers of economic, political, and social life. The temples of Sumer were grand edifices, their towering ziggurats reaching towards the heavens. These stepped pyramids, which were believed to be the dwelling places of the gods, were a testament to the Sumerians' architectural prowess and their deep reverence for the divine. Each city-state had its own temple, dedicated to its patron deity. These temples were often the largest and most prominent structures in the city, their presence a constant reminder of the divine authority that governed Sumerian life. Politically, the temples held immense power. The Ensi, or city ruler, was often the high priest of the city's temple. His authority derived from his role as the representative of the city's patron deity. The Ensi was responsible for maintaining the temple, performing the necessary rituals, and ensuring the favor of the gods. In return, the Ensi was granted the authority to govern the city-state, his rule seen as an extension of divine will. Socially, the temple was a hub of activity. It was a place of gathering where people came to worship, to celebrate festivals, and to conduct business. The temple was also a place of learning, where scribes were trained and where knowledge was preserved and passed down through generations. As we can observe, since we started this video, the Sumerians developed various different areas to facilitate the progress of their society. They were pioneers in multiple fields. Up to this point, we have observed the achievements of the Sumerians, who thrived in the region of the Fertile Crescent, specifically in the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia, through the lens of science, archaeology, and historiography. However, the purpose of this channel and this video is to go beyond what historians and archaeologists can assert about Sumerian civilization. This is because we will continue to examine history and philosophy at the boundaries of science in order to observe different nuances in the formation of the world and our society. In the Sumerian tablets, the Sumerians explicitly and clearly described the origin of the knowledge that enabled the development of civilization as we know it. If we could go back in time and ask any inhabitant of one of the Sumerian city-states about their creators, they would all point to the heavens. According to the Sumerian tablets, properly registered in Sumerian mythology, before the existence of humans, the earth was inhabited solely by gods and goddesses. These divine beings were the original laborers, tilling the land and performing other tasks. Some myths classify those gods and goddesses into two different groups. the major gods known as Anunnaki, and the junior gods known as Igigi. The gods who performed the tasks were the junior or minor gods known as Igigi. However, in some myths, it becomes clear that the gods and goddesses were tired of the hard work. In response to this divine fatigue, humans were created. The purpose of their creation, to serve the gods, to take over the labor that the gods found too burdensome. At this point, it is good to observe that the Sumerians referred to themselves as the black-headed people. The term Sumerians is a term that was not a self-designation, but one given to them by other civilizations in later times, such as the Akkadian Empire. The term Sumerian itself was not used by the people we now know as the Sumerians. It was a label applied by others. This term Sumerian means land of the civilized kings. And this title, Sumerians, or the inhabitants of the land of the civilized kings, has a deep connection with their story. Before we dive into this, I have to warn you, this is the exact point of the video where we are going to shift to a different point of view. We are going to abandon traditional science, archaeology, philosophy, and observe the cradle of civilization through another lens. Through this point of the video, I will ask you, if you have not watched some of the videos that I previously published, I will invite you to watch these videos after you finish this one, because they will give you a good idea of how intertwined studies such as theological, archaeological, historical, philosophical, and mythological are important to form a new way of viewing our past and understanding our present and our future. Now let's dive into this different point of view. Before we state that the word Sumerian is a term that means land of the civilized kings. If we turn our attention to the meaning that traditional science gives to the term Anunnaki, those of royal blood, we can already have a good idea about who these royal bloodlines are. Nevertheless, we can go much deeper than that. In the Sumerian clay tablets, there is an important document entitled the Sumerian King List. When looking at this title, it could be interesting to expand upon it. If Sumerian means land of the civilized kings, what could be contained in the document, the King List of the land of the civilized kings? Let's take a look at the first statement. It says, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. And at that point, you might be thinking, what? Let's go back to the part of this documentary when we were analyzing the Ubaid period, the historical period that predates the Sumerian civilization. From there, using historical sources, I said, the Ubaid period also saw the development of large village settlements. These settlements were characterized by their unique architecture, including large, multi-roomed houses made of mud bricks. The largest of these settlements was Eridu, which is considered by many to be the first city in the world. Eridu was a major center of the Ubaid culture, and it was here that we see the first signs of urbanization. By cross-referencing historical information with the insights gleaned from Mesopotamian myths, we may uncover intriguing answers. This indicates that during the pre-Sumerian period, the concept of kingship was believed to have originated from a divine source and was established in the city of Eridu. Historical sources suggest that Eridu could possibly be considered the first city in the world. According to these sources, Eridu was governed by a single king named Alulim for a remarkable duration of 28,800 years. If you find this interesting, I need to ask you to keep calm. Just see the information that comes next. As I said in another video, I'm a passionate researcher on this subject. I have been feeding myself with lots of information during the last 10 years. I've been reading academic and non-academic studies, and for now, we are going to delve into an academic source. You can read it if you want. Search on the internet for the article, the divine appointment of the first antediluvian king, newly recovered content from the Ur version of the Sumerian flood story. This article has been written by Jeremiah Peterson, an Assyriologist and specialist in cuneiform languages of ancient Mesopotamia. In this article, Jeremiah states, "The aforementioned possible literal meaning, seed of the red deer, could be a reference to the prehistoric origins of Alulim, when people were understood to behave more like animals. Humans of the prehistoric era are described as such most explicitly in the potentially related contexts of sheep and grain and how grain came to Sumer." Jeremiah, in his article, presents one text from the cuneiform tablets. This text states, "They, the chief deities, created humanity. After the animals were proliferating from the earth in unison, they made livestock and quadrupeds as fitting things in the steppe." The text continues, but it is not necessary to read more in order to make connections. Jeremiah elucidates that Alulim in those texts is most likely to be a non-human king, as the texts demonstrate that during this period there were no civilized humans on Earth. And of course, we need to remember that scientific sources, such as historical and archaeological evidence, state that civilized humans only appeared when the Sumerian civilization flourished. Before that, the humanoids on Earth were hunter-gatherers and nomads, and there was no civilization. When we read the Mesopotamian clay tablets, for instance, the period before the cradle of civilization in Sumer was a time when only the gods walked on Earth. To establish one more interesting connection, just look into this. In historical sources, such as the books of Samuel Noah Kramer, we can read that the Sumerians believed that their lives were devoted to serving the gods. This was not a point of contention or a philosophical debate for them. They did not grapple with modern dilemmas of free will versus determinism. For the Sumerians, their purpose was clear and unambiguous. They were created to serve the gods. And that's another point to observe. Historical sources align with their myths when the Sumerians elucidate that they were created to serve the gods, to substitute the hard work of the gods. This belief was reflected in their societal structures and practices. Those constructions known as ziggurats that we talked about earlier, these massive structures are thought to be the houses of the gods. These structures were built as places of worship and as a testament to the Sumerians' devotion to their divine creators. The Sumerians' belief in their divine purpose also influenced their understanding of the natural world. They saw the patterns and cycles in nature as manifestations of the divine will. The heavens, the earth, and the space in between. These were all elements of their cosmic understanding. By exploring their beliefs, we can gain a better understanding of their thoughts about their place in the universe and their interactions with the divine, as well as their spiritual beliefs. The Sumerians believed in an afterlife, a realm known as the underworld or Kur. This was not a place of punishment or reward, but rather a continuation of life, albeit in a shadowy, less vibrant form. The underworld was seen as a dark, dusty place where the spirits of the dead, known as Giddim or ghosts in our modern language, dwelled. Upon death, the Sumerians believed that the Giddim traveled to the underworld, crossing a river with the help of a ferryman. Once in the underworld, the Giddim lived a life similar to their earthly existence, eating, drinking, and socializing with other spirits. However, life in the underworld was not easy. The Giddim were dependent on their living relatives for sustenance, relying on them to provide food and drink offerings. If these offerings were not made, the Giddim could suffer from hunger and thirst, or even return to the world of the living as restless spirits. The Sumerians performed elaborate burial rituals to ensure the well-being of the Giddim. These rituals included the provision of grave goods such as food, drink, and personal belongings to accompany the deceased in the afterlife. The Sumerians also held regular feasts for the dead, during which they made offerings to their ancestors. The Sumerian beliefs about the afterlife reveal a civilization that was deeply aware of the fragility of life and the inevitability of death. They saw death not as an end, but as a transition to a different state of existence. Their rituals and beliefs reflected their desire to maintain a connection with their ancestors and ensure their well-being in the afterlife. I would like to conclude this documentary by clarifying that this subject is extremely vast, and just as it is vast, it is also incredibly fascinating. I know that this is not the only channel discussing this topic, and I also know that, like me, most people who come across this video and this channel have already read and researched extensively on this subject. I, Lucas, the name behind this channel, the name behind the studies and the texts, would like to express my deep gratitude to you for being here. Without you, I could never be sharing this kind of content. Furthermore, I want you to know the 3 main reasons why this subject is extremely intriguing. 1. Because this subject is relatively recent in our history, considering that the Mesopotamian tablets were discovered in the second half of the 19th century. 2. Because these gods revered by the first civilization in human history, the Anunnaki, bear incredible similarities to all the other gods in mythologies around the planet. And in this case, we might be referring in all mythologies to the same entities, the Anunnaki. 3. And this is the most important reason. The study of the Anunnaki represents the ultimate frontier between traditional science, archaeology, history, philosophy, pseudoscience, theology, and science fiction. The renowned author Zecharia Sitchin has faced extensive criticism, accused of inserting information into the tablets where it could not be found. However, the more I read and investigate this subject, even in academic sources, the more I notice that many of Sitchin's claims seem to be true. Although I must make it clear, crystal clear, I do not endorse Sitchin's work as the ultimate frontier of truth, just as I do not do so for any religious or historical perspective. I believe, deep within my being, that we should study various religious paths, academic perspectives, religious thoughts, philosophies, and mythologies in search of truth. I also believe that each person can find their own truth, and these truths can be different, coexisting on this planet without the need for us to wage war against one another. However, in this regard, I must remind you, the discovery of the Sumerian tablets is recent in our history. It is a delicate, captivating, and profoundly revolutionary subject, and it holds great importance. The story of the Anunnaki, as described by Sitchin in his studies, and in the Lost Book of Enki, is incredibly important to be studied, analyzed, known, and shared. This is the main reason why the Anunnaki movies exist here on this channel. Furthermore, Zecharia Sitchin did not translate the tablets himself. He merely made use of translations already established by some experts, although he was capable of reading the tablets and understanding them. Therefore, it is essential to consider his theory, research, and discoveries. By carefully observing Sitchin's theory, we can grasp many mysteries that surround our existence. There is much more to be said, studied, and shown about this subject, and it will be in future videos. Thank you for watching. Remember to like the video, comment, and share it with your friends and family. I'll see you in the next video.